Hi quilters, it's Margarita here with a new quilt, and this is a bonus pattern for our Crazy Shortcut Quilters. So if you have the book Crazy Shortcut Quilts, or if you've made one before, borrowed the book from the library, friend, guild, whatever, you'll need the book, because I'm not going to teach the whole entire process for making this quilt. Almost all of the process follows the same steps that are in our book. It's a quilt as you go quilt, but we took our inspiration this time from another quilt pattern. I watched a video called the Jelly Roll Quilt Race. Now, if you've never heard of a jelly roll, it's actually just a bundle of fabrics, usually put together at the manufacturing plant. So the fabrics are color coordinated by that manufacturer, and it's just a bundle of strips is all it is. So with the fabric, which is anywhere from 42 to 44 inches normally, and then the bundle, the jelly roll, the size of it's going to depend on how many strips the manufacturer put in. So on this particular quilt, this is a combo quilt made by Sarah and I. She followed the full process of the Jelly Roll Quilt Race, and the link to that video is in the description below. And then I changed it. She sent me the top because we talked about it. We loved this idea. It's a fantastic quilt, and you may just decide to make the quilt, that's your quilt right there from the Jelly Roll Quilt Race, and that's great. They are adorable, very quick and easy quilts to make. But I wanted to turn it into a quilt as you go type project. And I didn't want to quilt the whole big top. I wanted to break it into block size chunks like we do in the book. And so she sent me her strips to play with, her little Jelly Roll quilt top. And again, this was just 20 of 20 strips. The bundle that she had was a smaller one, and only 20 strips were used. If you want to make one, a quilt like this on your own using the book, but you want scraps, you'll just need 20 strips, about 42 to 44 inches long, and then follow the same process that they show in the Jelly Roll Quilt Race video, and follow the instructions that they have on their website. The link will be in the description below for that too. So what we did different was, instead of going all the way through and making the whole top, she stopped at 8 strips. And in fact, she didn't really stop at 8 strips. I took it apart. When Sarah made her red and white top, she ended up with 16 strips total, and the size was about 51 by 31, something like that, which was perfect for what I had in mind. And it's very different. So follow this all the way through before you start cutting or planning anything. You might see a few steps that surprise you, and there's a supply list at the very end for what you'll need in addition to the book to put this all together. Now, you might recognize that these are her strips here. This is one block, okay? This here is one block, and my steps through the rest of this video are going to show you how I got there and how I got here. This finished quilt, it doesn't have the binding on it yet, is 46.5 by 62. So a little bit bigger than a crib size, nice lap size quilt. Definitely not twin bed or anything like that size, but definitely a good throw. And if you like the process, stick with me, because Sarah made I think 5 of these Jelly Roll quilt tops, and I'm taking them all apart. Also at the end, this layout might not appeal to everybody. I'm going to show you, we had, I don't even remember, 5, 6 different layouts that we were playing with. I put them all up on the design wall and took photos of all of them. So you can choose your own. You might like something better that you see there. So let me show you how I made these blocks. Okay, you can see now I've got my seams all pressed open. That's my preference. This now, since it's ironed, measures out to 16 inches by about 50-ish in length, 49 something, 50. What I'm going to do now is cut my complementary fabric. I chose this white on white. I'm going to cut 2 pieces because I've got 2 of these strip groups to match exactly. So 16 inches by 50. Okay, I've got my 2 pieces of fabric. Doesn't matter which way they're layered right now. And then I've got my 2 strip sets here. And again, these measured 16. Now yours might be different. So the point is really whatever your strip sets measure this way is what we're going to do. We're going to cut this way. Now perfection is not required. If I did 3, and this is why you want the longer length, 3 sets of 16 is going to be 48 inches, and I've got 49 and a half, 50, something like that. So I can be just a little bit generous on this length. The strips don't always match up, and if you wanted to, you could make a clean cut across the edge here. It'd be up to you. And it might actually be the smarter way to go. I'm not going to do it, but I'll probably wish I did. So measuring 16 this way to match the 16 this way, cutting through all 4, the 2 strip sets and the 2 complementary pieces of fabric. So here we go. And set that aside for now. Get these into place. Measure off 16 here. All the way over to 16 and lined up pretty good. Okay. And now just to trim up, whatever's left should be 16 and maybe just a little bit more. Yeah, just a little extra on the ends. Okay, we don't need that. And we've got our sets. Now, here's the fun part. We're going to match these up just like you would make half square triangles. Well, just like I would make half square triangles. There's a lot of different ways to make half square triangles. This is a way that I particularly enjoy. So right sides together with my other fabric here, and get this out of the way. And what I'm going to need is a pencil. So get those squared up a little bit. And get my pencil and a ruler. I'll be right back. Okay, it's a marking pencil. You can use anything. The reason you can use anything is we're going to cut on this line, but we're not going to cut right now. We're just going to mark it. And put some pins in on either side here to keep the 2 layers in place. And then we're going to sew on either side of this line. So 1/4 inch from the line on this side and 1/4 inch from the line on this side. Just the same way you make little half square triangle patches, one way to make them anyway. And so doing the sewing on all of these, I'm going to mark them all. There's not that many blocks. And do the sewing first, and then we'll come back and cut. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here's all my sewn up squares. I'm going to take the pins out and cut along the center line. So just like this. Right along that blue line that we drew. Now hopefully your stitches are on either side. Of that blue line. And what we have is this lovely square. Isn't this great? This is like so cheater. I just love it. And you're not having to sew on all these biases, you know, after they're cut. It's always so much nicer to sew them before you cut them. So now I'll finish doing that with all the rest of them. I'm going to end up with 12 of these blocks. I'll go press. I'll probably press the seams open again, like I always do. And then layer for quilting. And you know how to do that. All right, so that's how I got the blocks. Now, the rest is straight out of the book. You're going to cut your backing, and I've got a little clip on how I do my backing because I'm such a scrounge artist when it comes to fabric. I don't like to waste anything, and so I've got my own cutting method for even for the back squares. And I want to share that with you just in case it helps you out. This is going to be my backing material for my red and white quilt. And I need 16.5-inch squares. Now, the easiest thing, of course, to do is just come along and cut up. Find my measurements, 16.5 here, and then just make a straight cut and make my two squares out of that and then have a little bit left over, but that's never ever what I do, even though it's easy. What I do is I measure out 16.5 inches from here to here. I measure out however much I need. And then I make a cut along here, but I leave this hole. I just move the ruler over and make my same cuts. And that way I get one big long strip. This is the fold here. I always cut my blocks along the selvage edge over here. And because I've got that nice big long strip left, now this is going to be, I'm going to use about 100 inches of fabric. That's, you know, almost 3 yards of fabric to do my backing. Nice long strip in the back that's got the fold in it, so it's actually twice this width. I can use that to cut out my sashing joining strips. I can put it in my scrap basket and it'll be nice size fabric to work with instead of just chunks, you know, cut in small pieces. So just a little tip on how I cut my fabric. So let me pile up some backing squares. I need 12. And they're going to be 16.5 inches for the project I'm working on now. Okay, you've got your squares layered and ready for quilting. Now, what I did was, you might remember I pressed all my seams open. So I didn't want to stitch down that line. It's not really a strong line for stitching when your seams are pressed all the way open. I decided to use a white thread and I did straight lines. And they're not perfect. I didn't mark anything, no guidelines for this part of the straight line, and there's a little trick I did for the rest of the gridding. And I'll show you how I did that too. But I started with straight lines down the center of the interior strips. So not the very outside ones. There's nothing on the outside ones. But the middle ones, all of these, there's a line of stitching, just straight line with the walking foot. I love my walking foot. I don't even like to take it off anymore. I just use it for everything. And so I wanted to use it for the quilting too. This is sort of a traditional block, and I really wanted it to have some traditional looking quilting. Straight lines and gridding worked just fine for me. What I found, because I wasn't marking at all, was that it was easier to do this long one in the color than it was to start over here and then just kind of eyeball it. So start here first and then work your way this way on the rest of your strips. And here's how I kept the balance of the lines for going this way. Alright, here you can see my quilting is done. It didn't take very long because it's just straight lines. I always have loved the simplicity of just a gridded pattern. And this isn't perfect. You could measure this out and you'd find out it's not perfect, but it looks pretty close and that's good enough. Now, how I did that, I decided that I wanted to just come down the middle. These seams are pressed open, remember? So I don't want to come down the seams. That's not what I wanted to do for my project anyway. And I didn't want to get too close to the edge, so I didn't do this row and I didn't do this row either. But for all the rest of them, just one straight line and using the walking foot very easily, just, you know, guide it right through and you're good. The deal with me was I wanted to get the same measuring, you know, the balance that I got when I did these, and it was a lot easier to start on this one, the long one, and keep it straight than it was when I did this one. I kind of wobbled sometimes. So after that I started over here and did this side first. All my lines always go in this way. I'm always sewing in this direction. That's just my choice. So what I did was I just got this piece of scrap paper and I measured out where my lines were. Right here is a stitching line all the way through. So I made a mark on the paper right where my stitching lines were. Then I came over to this side here, and I hope you can see this. There's actually blue marker right in here. It's going to get trimmed off or it'll end up being in the joining strips. But I took my same pencil that I used when I was doing my center line, and I just made marks right here on the edge. It goes across just a little bit of the fabric and onto the batting, and it was very, very easy to see. And then all I did was line it up with the center of my walking foot and stitch straight down this way. And they're not perfect either. There's little puckers here and there, not the end of the world. This is going to be a user quilt. It's going to get washed. These puckers will disappear, and the grid work is going to make it feel kind of old-fashioned, I think. And it's kind of an old-fashioned design too, so I think I'm really going to like that. Now I'm getting ready to trim them all, and what I really want to do, we don't normally do this with our other quilts, the crazy cutting, is I want to keep this fairly straight. So I don't want to cut it where, you know, this ends up being the corner. I really want this to be the corner. And so it's going to, you know, I'll be a little bit careful about my cutting. So after I got done quilting, I realized that I had no sashing fabric. So it was time to go shopping. Included at the end is a 1 yard fabric requirement, which will do your binding and do your top sashing strips. And what I found out here was I liked having a color that worked with the blocks versus, you know, the obvious grid work that we have in the quilts in the book. And so that's a little bit different, and I hope you'll try it. I kind of liked it. So here are some of the layouts that I played with before Sarah and I decided that this was the one that we liked the best. And then following the layouts is the supply list. I hope that you liked my video. I hope that you like making the quilts, and I hope if you haven't already that you'll subscribe to the videos. There's a button up here somewhere that says to subscribe if you're on YouTube, and I really hope you'll share it with your friends. Thanks so much for watching.